The Met Gala was never meant to be polite. It was a cathedral where fashion's most complicated prayers were made visible. Devotion to craft, spectacle as sermon, and that peculiar alchemy where cloth becomes cultural currency. Tonight, that cathedral is changing owners. Not quietly, not behind closed doors, in the brightest light we have. The Bezos family's lead donation to the Met's Costume Institute is not merely a headline, it's a symptom. It asks us quite plainly, who now decides what fashion worship looks like and who pays them. There is genius in the theatre of the gala, the way a single night can fold centuries of taste into a single image. But there is danger too when the stage itself becomes a prize for the richest bidders. The announcement that Jeff Bezos and Sánchez Bezos would be among the primary donors for the Costume Institute's Costume Art exhibition reshaped weeks of conversation into an ethical question. When cultural institutions lean on tech money, do they preserve art or do they merely convert it into influence? Let us be precise. Philanthropy has always been the oxygen of museums. The Met depends on generosity to keep its galleries alive, yet the form of that generosity matters. When a donor's name eclipses a curator's, or when headlines center a family more than a dress, the power balance tilts. Fashion becomes context for capital, and capital begins to write the narrative. Anna Wintour's public praise of Sánchez and the Bezoses, gracious, grateful, and deeply strategic, only clarified the tension. The gala needs funding, culture needs survival. These are not mutually exclusive. But the optics are not neutral. They speak loudly to who is invited to write fashion's next chapter. So what are we actually watching? Not a conspiracy, but an evolution, the repositioning of fashion institutions as platforms of social capital for a new elite. The Met Gala is no longer simply a runway that shows the best of couture. It is a stage where billionaires project cultural legitimacy. The question becomes less about taste and more about authority. Who gets to define high fashion when a tech magnate holds the checkbook? How does this reshape patronage and therefore the history that the museum preserves? The Daily Beast. There are three truths we must hold in the same breath. First, the gala raises money for vital research, preservation, and exhibitions that would otherwise be impossible. Second, the institution's survival cannot be reduced to a moral failing when it seeks patrons. Third, the character of those patrons reshapes public trust. Fans and critics alike responded with confusion, anger, and a kind of grief, a sense that the thing they loved was being rebranded in front of them. That reaction is not merely about politics, it is a cultural response to a perceived loss of the thing's soul. Why does this matter for fashion beyond the headlines? Because fashion is a form of cultural memory. Museums do not merely archive garments, they curate the meaning around them. When the lens shifts from designers and artisans to donors and brand owners, what we preserve, and therefore what future generations study as important, will reflect a different set of priorities. The silhouette we honor becomes the silhouette we repeat. The risk is subtle but real. Aesthetic can be quietly subordinated to social theatre. The consequences reverberate through ateliers, retail floors, and editors' offices. They reach young designers whose visions depend on an ecosystem that values craft over celebrity currency. There is a practical politics here too. Museums that accept large donations from powerful figures often enter long and complicated relationships with those donors. Exhibition themes, programming decisions, and even the stewardship of collections can be influenced by these relationships. Not always overtly, but through what I will call soft direction, the persistent framing influence of money on taste. The Met is an institution with a global voice. Who funds that voice matters to every dressmaker, pattern cutter, and creative director who looks to the museum for validation. Let us not be naive. The gifting of money to art is not inherently corrupting. Philanthropy has propelled museums into new eras of scholarship and public access. But context is everything. The modern Billionaires brand is not just commerce, it is an index of influence. When a tech family becomes front-page cultural patron, it is not merely offering funds. It is purchasing proximity to gatekeepers, narratives, and legitimacy. That's how social ecosystems are built. That is how reputations are recast. And that is why we must scrutinize without reflexive cynicism the institutional choices being made in broad daylight. There will be voices who say resistance is elitist, that anyone who can help a museum should be thanked, welcomed. I hear that. My argument is not a rejection of philanthropy, it's a demand for clarity. Transparency matters. How are donors chosen? Why are certain families elevated? And what safeguards exist to protect curatorial independence? These are governance questions as much as moral ones. They are not conspiracy talk. They are basic administrative accountability that any self-respecting cultural institution should welcome. We must also look inward to our own role as viewers. The Met Gala depends on our fetish, our appetite for spectacle, our desire for a single image culture. We click, we share, we give oxygen. That virality is currency. So yes, some of the responsibility rests with audiences who let spectacle masquerade for substance. But that does not absolve institutions, nor does it absolve the people who design the ceremonies we celebrate. The challenge is collective, to preserve the poetry of fashion while refusing to let power quietly purchase its authorship. What does the future look like if this model continues? We will not see fewer beautiful gowns, nor will craftsmanship vanish overnight. But the field will tilt. The most visible platforms will favour sponsors who can buy access, and attention will follow the people with the largest megaphones. Creatives who once relied on museum airtime for legitimacy may find their work reframed through a different lens, one that measures success by proximity to wealth rather than technical achievement. It is not inevitable. Culture is resilient, but it is plausible and therefore urgent. There is a counter-movement already stirring. Editors, collectors, artisans, and smaller museums are building alternatives. Quiet programs, independent archives, and digital scholarship that refuses to trade meaning for megaphones. The work of preserving technique, of documenting pattern books and seam finishes, continues whether or not it trends on the first Monday in May. That persistence matters more than any gala headline. It is the slow diligence of craft that keeps fashion honest. For the Met, the choice is clear. Embrace the funds and simultaneously double down on transparency and curatorial authority. Name the donors, publish the terms, protect the curators. If a donation comes with strings, those strings must be public. If not, then the institution's stewardship must be reasserted loudly and proudly. The public deserves to know how cultural capital is transacted. Institutions must build walls where needed and windows where possible. To our viewers, this conversation is not about personal attacks. It is about ideas, who shapes them, who benefits, and why they matter to how we live. If you love fashion for its beauty, its history, its capacity to contain meaning, then this moment is worth attention. Ask the questions: who funds my museums, who writes the exhibition text, and who gets the final say on what is called important? Do not accept a single narrative because it comes wrapped in abundance. And to the brands, the designers, the people who live inside ateliers and pattern rooms, remember your sovereignty. Your craft is not a sponsorship line item. It is an archive of human dexterity and cultural memory. Keep making, keep teaching, keep documenting. Institutions may shift, but technique endures, and technique ultimately what returns fashion to its truest purpose. The Met Gala will go on, gowns will glimmer, headlines will explode, and the cameras will eat the night. But the story we must insist upon is larger than the red carpet. It is about who owns the narrative of taste in an era when money moves faster and louder than ever before. This is not an elegy for the gala. It is a plea for stewardship, for clarity, for institutions that serve history before headline. Fashion needs patrons, yes, but it needs guardians too. If you want to continue this conversation, come sit with us at GTWJ. We will keep asking the difficult questions, we will celebrate the clothes we love, and we will challenge the systems that risk turning culture into commodity. Follow along at GTWJ Mag, and let us keep this a place where taste is taught, not purchased. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And if nothing else, remember this: clothes tell stories. Let us make sure the right people are telling them. The Met Gala is not simply about who is wearing what, it is about who is allowed to speak for fashion. And this is the real shift that people feel deep in their stomachs, even if they can't articulate it. For 20 years, fashion's loudest voices have been editors, critics, designers, and sometimes celebrities. But now, the loudest voices are billionaires, investors, platform owners, and tech giants who see culture as a portfolio asset. The Met Gala sponsorship isn't about gowns or charity. It's a social acquisition. It's the gilded rebranding of relevance. Fashion has always flirted with wealth, but the old relationship had mutual seduction. Couture needed patrons, and patrons needed couture to prove they had taste. Today's patrons don't need taste, they have already won. They use cultural institutions like the Met, the same way they use rockets and space exploration, not as fields of passion, but as proofs of dominion. Art becomes the next territory to conquer. Social prestige becomes an investment instrument, and that is why people are uneasy. Not because Jeff and Lauren Sánchez Bezos are villains. They're not. They are simply the most visible version of the new reality. The people shaping culture are the ones who own the platforms, not the ones who create the art. A museum exhibit becomes an algorithmic distribution channel. A gala becomes a PR engine. A dress becomes a clickable asset. You can already feel the ripple effect. Designers begin to chase red carpet approval more than atelier excellence. Brands become strategy documents, not visions. The Met's exhibitions, once intellectual, sometimes controversial, always grounded in craft, start mirroring the headlines they need to justify their donors. The public narrative bends towards spectacle because spectacle ensures continued sponsorship. This, more than anything, is what threatens the poetic heart of fashion. And here's the irony. While the richest people in the world are securing their names into institutions, real fashion lovers, the ones who read lookbooks, who feel fabric, who understand construction, are becoming more private. The true connoisseurs are moving underground. You see it in quiet luxury, in archive communities, in people rediscovering old Celine, Bulgari watches from the 90s, vintage Alaya knitwear. The culture is splitting. The ultra-wealthy are chasing legacy branding, while the authentically stylish chase intimacy. If you want to understand how this sponsorship will shape the Met, look at the future themes. Look at how the narrative moves away from subversive designers, difficult artists, or historical costume scholars. Instead, we get exhibitions that are cinematic, digestible, easy to package into content, because the new billionaire patronage model rewards visibility, not nuance. It rewards headlines, not research. But here is the twist no one sees coming. The more culture becomes commodified, the more audiences will crave sincerity. Fashion history is cyclical. Every time the elites stamp their names on the walls of art, a counterforce emerges. The romantic, the rebellious, the people who actually care. The Met Gala's billionaire chapter will not kill fashion. It will provoke fashion. It will fertilize the soil for a new generation of designers who reject spectacle and return to mastery. And remember this, institutions are not immortal. They are judged by history. The Met rose to power because it protected the craft. Vogue rose to power because it championed designers before they were household names. If these institutions lose the trust of people who actually love fashion, new institutions will replace them. A digital archive can become more authoritative than a marble museum. A community like ours, if we stay principled, can become more influential than a carpet live stream. What the Bezos era truly signals is a divergence. Two worlds of luxury are forming. The corporate luxury of prestige optics, big galas, big donors, big logos, and the underground intimacy, smaller brands, handmade pieces, micro ateliers, human-to-human craft. One screams, the other whispers. One is loud, the other is sacred. And fashion has always been most alive in the sacred. So, ask yourself, which side do you belong to? Do you want to belong to a culture of access, invitations, and red carpets, or to a culture of knowledge, craftsmanship, and personal taste? The future of fashion will not be decided by billionaires alone. It will be written by those who understand why clothes matter beyond their price tags, by the people who refuse to let institutions become marketing channels, and by communities that believe fashion is a language, not a logo. That is why GTWJ exists. This space is not just commentary, it is an archive of taste, a living diary of cultural psychology. Here we do not worship wealth, we study it. We do not chase trends, we read them. We do not shout to be seen, we whisper to be understood. The next Met Gala will come. The dresses will be beautiful, the media will explode, the donors will smile, the cameras will consume. But beneath the glamour, something deeper is happening. A negotiation for who gets to define beauty, who gets to own memory, and who gets to write the future of fashion. And as long as we are here, I promise you, we will not let that conversation be hijacked. Stay close, stay curious, and welcome to the community where fashion is not a circus. It is a language of power, identity, and self-respect. This is why the future of fashion won't be televised on a red carpet. It will be created quietly by people who choose taste over noise. And because so many of you asked for something deeper, something more private, our first GTWJ digital magazine arrives on December 1st. It will be a space for elegance, psychology, culture, the side of fashion you never see on the surface.